you were about to depart to Russia. We spoke about the trip on this show. You had everything set up. You're about to board a plane to Turkey in the first week of June, but you were unable to go. Your passport was seized by the State Department. Could you talk about, one, what has happened since then? And two, you have been talking a lot about this suppression, this act, this heinous violation of your rights as something bigger than just yourself. So also, if you could speak to that as well.
Well, first of all, let's just point out that my passport wasn't seized by the State Department. It was seized by armed members of the Customs and Border Protection Service, 3 of them to be precise, who pulled me out of the line right before I was boarding the aircraft. They took control of the passport and said that they did so on the authority of the United States State Department, on the orders of the United States State Department. They didn't show me those orders. They didn't tell me what the authority was. They couldn't even tell me who in the State Department to call to get clarification. They just took the passport. And since then, there's been no update. I've reached out to the U.S. government, to the State Department, and even when I get human beings, they immediately shut up and the best they could do is give me an address to write a letter. And so that's where we're at. But, this isn't rocket science. I was issued this passport in 2021. And I have traveled extensively with this passport, including 2 prior trips to Russia. The Customs and Border Patrol showed great interest upon my return both times, taking control of my passport and asking me numerous questions. The U.S. government was informed in advance of my travel plans for prior trips and this one. What made this different is that this time I was going to speak to the St. Petersburg International Economic Forum, the largest forum of its type in the world, the most important forum of its type in the world. And then I was scheduled in August to speak at the Moscow International Security Conference, which again is probably the preeminent security conference in the world right now, given the current geopolitical situation. And in the interim, I was going to carry out a 40-day tour of Russia, one of the goals of which was to make a documentary film that would capture the essence of Russia, bring it back, and show to an American audience. And I think I hit the trifecta of fear on the part of the State Department, who shut it down. And that's what happened. The State Department made a deliberate decision to shut this trip down, to make sure it didn't happen. And, it's an infringement on First Amendment rights. Whatever excuse the State Department comes up with, we know what it is. There's not an outstanding warrant for my arrest. If there was, I wouldn't be here. You don't seize the passport and then say, go. You say you're under arrest. That's what due process is all about. I'm not in arrears on my taxes. That's another reason. I don't owe child support or I don't have alimony payments. There's nothing of that nature. So the State Department made a decision in the past to let me travel. It was a concerted decision on their part. They said, yes, he can travel. This time they said, no, he cannot travel. Why? They didn't want me to speak. That's sort of an infringement on freedom of association. That's an infringement on Fifth Amendment rights of freedom of travel. That's an infringement on freedom of speech. The State Department apparently, doesn't understand what the Constitution is. They may come up with some hocus pocus, gobbledygook. But the bottom line is I was traveling on a valid passport issued to me by the State Department in 2021, a valid passport that the State Department allowed me to travel several times in the past 2 years, including 2 trips to Russia. And now the State Department decided you're not going to travel. It was specifically to stop me from attending these conferences and carrying out this filming. And there's no other way to spin this, none whatsoever.
Well, you must be doing something right, Scott. What exactly do you believe they're so afraid of? I mean, you were going to go travel around Russia. You had a lot of goals for this trip, including the St. Petersburg International Economic Forum. So I'm wondering your assessment on what is the quote unquote threat, do you think, for allowing you in particular to speak? Because you are one of the few people in the United States who is going to make this kind of trip. If anyone else is doing this, the project itself is unique unto your efforts.
Yeah, I can't speak on behalf of the State Department, and it's really a struggle to get into their mindset. I know that they do not want to have anybody come up with the antidote to the poison of Russophobia that the State Department's been spreading throughout the United States and in Western Europe. And again, this is what I do. This is what I'm about. I'm about creating the antidote to Russophobia. And I do that by traveling to Russia, by speaking to Russians, by gathering information that the United States government doesn't want gathered and which the mainstream media won't gather. I assess it fairly, without bias, and then I regurgitate it back into the United States and to be consumed by the American audience. And I think, I don't want to toot my own horn because it's really not about that, but for better or for worse, depending on your point of view, my message has been gaining traction, both in the United States and abroad. When I started this project back in 2023, when I traveled, or let's say the summer of 2022, I think I had 17,000 Twitter followers. And today the number is up over 353,000. That's just an indication of the scale of expansion of attention that's being paid to my efforts and the efforts of those people who help me. And so we're in the process of gaining critical mass at an important juncture. I mean, this summer is going to be a critical summer for the United States because of upcoming elections. And the last thing, a politicized State Department, and that's what we're dealing with here. We're not dealing with a State Department that represents the United States of America or the American people. We're dealing with a State Department that operates solely at the behest of the executive branch to carry out the political objectives of the President of the United States, in this case, Joe Biden, who, by the way, is my mortal enemy. And so I think the State Department understood that, and the White House understood that this effort that I was undertaking was gaining traction and had the potential of becoming a political problem for the Biden administration in the summer of 2024. So they shut it down. But you want to know what the irony is of all this? There's that old saying, there's no such thing as bad PR. Well, if they wanted to stifle this, if they wanted to stifle me, if they wanted, it backfired. Look, let's be frank. The State Department wanted to embarrass me. That's the whole purpose of this. There's one reason and one reason only they can take away my passport. They haven't articulated it, but I know what it is, and everybody knows what it is. I'm a registered sex offender. Now, I reject that title. I've made it clear I'm an innocent man, but it doesn't matter. The government has put that title on me, and the purpose of that is to make me embarrassed to appear in public, to make me hide in shame. It didn't work. Why? Because I ain't guilty. Why am I going to hide from anything? I'm going to hide from nothing. And for those people out there saying, you're guilty twice, I don't care about you. You don't matter. Get out of the way. I'm going to continue doing what I do for those people who care about the substance of what I have to say. What the State Department did is pull a passport that didn't have the International Megan's Law travel stamp in it. Now, remember, I didn't avoid anything. They gave me the damn passport in 2021. I was released from prison in 2015. They returned my passport in 2014, returned my passport in 2015. I submitted it for renewal. They knew who I was. They didn't put the stamp in it. They let me travel. They knew all this because, like I said, under the law, 21 days in advance of any international travel, I have to provide a complete itinerary. Where I'm going, who I'm meeting, where I'm staying, the whole thing. It's all laid out. There's no secrets here. They got it all. And yet they let me travel in the past. And on there, the thing clearly says, I am doing this because I am a registered sex offender. I'm required by law to do this, even though I say I'm not a registered sex offender. You say I am. Therefore, I'm obeying the law. Because if I don't and I try to travel without doing this, I go to jail for 10 years. I ain't going to jail. So I submit the paperwork. It's submitted through. Everybody knows, totally compliant. Their goal right now is to pull the passport and then put the stamp of shame inside my new passport and somehow believe that that's going to intimidate me from traveling, that somehow now I'm going to be too ashamed to travel. Stick it where the sun don't shine, State Department. You can't intimidate an innocent man. You can't shame an innocent man. You only shame yourself. I'll carry that passport. I'll travel with that passport. It doesn't, it bothers me. It's a stupid thing. But that's okay. When I submit my visa application to Russia, I'm honest about everything where it says, have you ever been convicted? There it is. What were you convicted of? Lay it out there. The Russians know in advance. I'm not hiding anything from anybody. But the State Department felt, this is my assessment because they won't admit this, that this time they couldn't let me travel. So they did the only thing they could do, which is this narrow thing, say, oh, we're going to revoke his passport because it doesn't have the stamp in it. They could have revoked my passport at any time. For instance, when I came back from Russia in January, they held me in a cell holding area for an hour with my passport. They knew who I was. They knew what the passport was. They knew what was in the passport and what wasn't in the passport. They returned it to me. If they were concerned at that time, they should have revoked it right there and said, oh my God, you don't have the stamp of shame. We're revoking your passport. Why didn't they? Because I'd get a new passport, which I'm going to do. They did this at the point of maximum impact. They know how much money was spent on tickets. They know by pulling me off that airplane, there's going to be no refunding of those tickets. And they know that I had a team waiting in the wings to fly to Russia, and that we ended up, losing tens of thousands of dollars of money that we had raised for this trip is gone, irretrievably lost. This was a deliberate action by the State Department, timed not only to embarrass me, but to cripple the operation that I was running. Well, guess what, State Department? It ain't going to work. We're going to recover. We're going to get back up on our feet, and we're going to keep marching. And they can just, I have a very good friend who I respect a lot, a very wise man. And he sent me an email today reminding me that there's a lot of people who watch me when I appear on shows such as this or on my own podcast, and that I might want to start refraining from the kind of Marine Corps type language that I frequently use. And because I respect the guy and I respect his insights, he's 110% right. So even though I'm furious and would gladly rip the head off of people, I'm just going to calm down and just take a chill pill and roll with the punches, because that's all this is. This isn't the end of the fight. This is the end of a round. And they think they won the round. They didn't, because there's going to be the next round. And on that one, they ain't going to land a punch. All the punches are going to be landed by me. It's a setback, but what they say, where there's lemons, make lemonade. You know what happened the other day, Danny? And I'm going to announce it here tonight on your show to help promote it and maybe get you involved in this. Because of this, Judge Napolitano was supposed to come with me too to Russia. I was bringing him. And so the judge, I, and a wonderful man named Gerald Salante had dinner the other night at a beautiful restaurant in Goshen, New York. And there we talked about what needs to be done, what the next step needs to be. How do we get Americans off their butts and motivated? On September 28th, Gerald Salante is holding an event in Kingston, New York. And the event, which doesn't have a formal name yet, is dedicated to saving a democracy, saving America, saving the world. It's focused on nuclear disarmament, getting rid of nuclear weapons. We want to put 1 million people in Kingston that day. We want to replicate what happened at Woodstock, where so many people showed up that the Thruway was shut down. So we're begging America to shut down the Thruway on September 28th. It's a Saturday. It's New York now. You guys can partake. You can walk. You can park your cars, shut down the Thruway, head to Kingston, New York, and participate in a gathering. I can't call it a march per se, but a gathering of Americans who are sending a signal in this election season that we don't want to die from nuclear conflict, that we want arms control, that we want to de-emphasize nuclear weapons, that we believe in peace, that we believe that Russia and America not only can be friends, but should be friends. So I'm sure Gerald will invite you, because I'm going to ask him to. And you have a wonderful following, and I'm hoping that you can implore your following, especially those people on the East Coast. But even if you're not, if you can't gather in Kingston, gather in San Francisco in support. Gather in Seattle. Just get into the streets on September 28th and shut the center of your city down. Peaceful people standing there saying, we're just not going to take it anymore. We're not going to put up with it. I wouldn't be talking to you about this right now if I had traveled to Russia, and this would be a missed opportunity. But because the State Department, in their infinite wisdom, blocked me, I had a dinner. And at that dinner, we strategized. And what we came up with is the September 28th Save America rally. And it's going to be a great event. And we need as many people as possible to get involved in. All you have to do is show up in Kingston. That's it. Just show up in Kingston. And if the thruway's blocked, park your car and walk. Shut the thruway down, just like they did at Woodstock.
Yeah, definitely. Whatever I can do to support, I will do so. And I think it's a great point you make about opportunities arising when, as you said, the actions meant to silence you end up backfiring big time. And this is something that's been going on for quite a while. We know there's a longer history to this, but even since February of 2022, when the special military operation launched, we've talked about various lists. You are on many. This is one that we share on the Center for Countering Disinformation, the State Department backed think tank. And maybe you can talk about this a bit. How does this fit into this larger trend that's been going on since the jump of the special military operation launched by Russia?
Yeah, I mean, this is the disturbing thing, because when a lot of people might watch this and say, well, Scott, you've been, again, I have to watch my language out of respect for my good friend and mentor. You've been irritating the U.S. government. And so, of course, there's a price you have to pay. You didn't think you were just going to be able to, kick the hornet's nest and not get stung. All right. Fair enough. I'm getting stung. But this isn't about me. This is what people need to understand. If you look at this roster, what you see up there are people who aren't named Scott Ritter. These are distinguished people, including Danny. But just go around the list and you'll see, distinguished alternative media personalities, former government officials, all serious people, all serious actors in this. And they're on this list. What is this list? This list was compiled by an entity known as the Center for Countering Disinformation. What makes this notable is that the funding to create the Center for Countering Disinformation was included in the initial new Lend-Lease Act funding back in May of 2022. Funding that was voted on by the United States Congress. Now, this is an important point, because once this funding was passed, then the State Department worked with the presidency of Ukraine to create this entity, which is an adjunct of the presidency, or run out of the presidency. The State Department helped create this blacklist. The blacklist is of people who have been singled out as information terrorists by the Center for Countering Disinformation. And that's an important term, because the other thing that the Center for Countering Disinformation says is that information terrorists must be treated the same as terrorists, that they represent the same threat to the rule of law and international peace and security. And in the United States, we know that under the Obama administration, even under the Bush administration, under the Biden administration, the Trump administration, terrorists were killed without due process, including American citizens. We have assassinated American citizens in Yemen without due process. because they were terrorists. And so Ukraine is saying this, but it's not Ukraine saying this in a vacuum. Ukraine is saying this in meetings organized and paid for by the United States government. In the same meeting that they promulgated this blacklist, if you look at the photographs and you read the articles, you see the State Department officials brought in from Washington, D.C. You see the embassy officials there, and they're taking notes and nodding their head as they're announcing this because they wrote the policy. The First Amendment of the United States of America says that Congress shall enact no laws that infringe on the freedom of speech or on the freedom of the press. Congress passed a law sending money to Ukraine, and inside this money package was money specifically allocated for the creation of the Center for Countering Disinformation, whose mission, as directed by the State Department of the United States, is to shut down Americans for exercising their freedom of speech. Now, did Congress pass a law deliberately to do this? No, it's an end around, but I'd sure like to have a district court somewhere in the United States take a pass at this. So if there's any constitutional lawyers out there who want to do some pro bono stuff, contact me. Contact Danny. Danny will tell you how to get in contact with me. And let's do this. I got the summer now. You know, I got things to do. I got free on my calendar. So, hey, let's declare war against the State Department and their frontal assault on free speech, because that's what this is. This Congress passed a law authorizing money to be allocated to Ukraine. Ukraine, in collusion with the United States government, the State Department, created a blacklist that includes Americans whose only crime is speaking things that the government of Ukraine doesn't like. That, to me, is a flagrant violation of the law, of the Constitution. But it's even more than that. You see, there's another list out there called the Mirotvorets list. It's a hit list, an assassination list run by the Ukrainian intelligence service. Now, I can't prove that there's American money that gets allocated to this, except to note that because it's run by the Ukrainian intelligence service, just like the State Department has a cozy relationship with the Center for Countering Disinformation, the Central Intelligence Agency has an even cozier relationship with the Ukrainian intelligence. There's nothing that the Ukrainian intelligence does that the CIA, A, doesn't know, and B, probably is directing it. We know this. We know the CIA has been working with Ukrainian intelligence since at least 2014. They've established 12 covert bases along the border between Ukraine and Russia to spy on Russia, to carry out covert actions inside Russia. And they train these operatives in, you know, they have, the CIA has an organization. It's called the Special Missions Center now. It used to be called the Special Activities Division or Special Activities Branch. But now it's the Special Missions Center. And in there, they have something called Ground Branch. Ground Branch is a paramilitary organization. And Ground Branch provides training to foreign entities in what is known as unconventional warfare. Unconventional warfare, guerrilla warfare, is assassinating people, carrying out sabotage, blowing things up, doing the dirty work. They call it unconventional warfare, but it's terrorism. Terrorism. This is why there's strong reason to believe that the CIA was behind the attack on the concert hall in Moscow, because that's unconventional warfare. It's exactly designed to achieve an asymmetrical result. You attack using a small number of people and get a larger benefit from it. The CIA was probably involved in that, and there's no doubt in my mind that the CIA is at a minimum knowledgeable of and probably colluding with the Ukrainian intelligence services effort to assassinate people. And this is a real list. It's a living list. They've assassinated Daria Dugina, for instance, the daughter of Alexander Dugin, one of the great modern philosophical, political philosophers of Russia. They assassinated Tatarsky, a Russian military blogger, killed him in St. Petersburg. They tried to kill another person in Nizhny Novgorod. They've assassinated Ukrainian politicians inside Russia. Rumor has it that during my trip to Crimea, they were trying to kill me as well. So, you know, it's an active list, and Americans are on this list, and the Ukrainian government is targeting Americans, and the State Department does nothing. I mean, at a minimum, you should get a démarche from the State Department saying you have to shut this thing down. You're not only because you can't really be in the business of killing people who disagree with you. That's not what's done in a rules-based international order, apparently, but apparently it is. But the State Department not only has said nothing about this list, they continue to allow it to exist. And given the relationship between the CIA and Ukrainian intelligence, are probably facilitating the implementation of the assassinations that take place. So taking my passport is just the tip of the iceberg of what the State Department's doing to target Americans who dare speak out against the conflict in Ukraine. This is a frontal assault on the individual civil liberties of every American whose name is on that list. And that list is growing and growing and growing. And Congress isn't doing anything about it because Congress is in collusion with the State Department and the CIA to attack Americans. And this, again, becomes a constitutional issue. I'd love the Supreme Court to take a whack at it. So, like I said, again, any good constitutional lawyers out there want to have fun this summer? Let's rock and roll.
Thank you for tuning in to my latest video. I appreciate all of your support. This channel, however, needs your help. I am seeking to make this channel more sustainable in the long term and upgrade necessary equipment to ensure that this work continues onward and makes progress to give you all of the geopolitical analysis that you all deserve. For that reason, I'm asking you to become a member of my Patreon community at patreon.com/DannyDhaiphong. You can find that link in the video description or in the pinned comment below. For whatever amount you choose to give, just know you are supporting independent media that you can't find anywhere else. Thank you so much, and I look forward to the next video.